The roar of engines echoed through the quiet neighborhood as a notorious biker gang descended like a storm. Their mission? A quick score, kidnapping a young girl from her own backyard. They thought it would be easy. They thought wrong. What they didn't know was that her father, James, a man living a quiet life as a mechanic, wasn't just any father. He was a retired Navy SEAL with a very particular set of skills, honed over years of dangerous missions. As the gang speeds away, thinking they've made a clean getaway, James discovers the empty yard and his daughter's favorite toy lying in the dirt. In that moment, his calm exterior cracks, revealing a man ready to do whatever it takes to bring her home. The bikers may have the numbers, but James has the training, and they have no idea what's coming for them. James stood frozen for just a moment, the weight of the situation sinking in. Memories of his SEAL days flashed through his mind. The missions, the enemies, the countless times he had faced danger head-on. But this was different. This was his daughter, his world. He took a deep breath, steadying himself, then walked into the house, his mind already racing. In his small home office, a locked drawer concealed what he had hoped to never use again. An old map of the local area, notes on biker gang activity he had quietly tracked, and a burner phone connected to a former contact in law enforcement. James wasn't just a dad. He was always prepared. Meanwhile, the gang's hideout was buzzing with activity. The leader, Razor, believed they'd pulled off a clean job, but something about the girl seemed off, calm, observant, and strangely unafraid. The gang hadn't yet realized they'd just made their worst mistake. As the gang settled into their hideout, Razor noticed the girl sitting silently in the corner, her wide eyes scanning the room. She wasn't crying or begging, which unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. "What's your name?" he growled. She didn't answer, just stared at him with a calmness that sent a ripple of unease through the group. Razor waved it off, chalking it up to nerves. They had done this before. No one had ever tracked them down. Back at home, James worked methodically, piecing together every clue. He found tire marks in the dirt and a torn leather glove, details others might miss, but that stood out to his trained eye. He mapped out possible routes the gang could have taken, using his knowledge of the area to narrow down their hideout. Every moment without his daughter fueled his determination, sharpening his focus. Unbeknownst to Razor, the girl had memorized details of their hideout, exits, faces, voices. Her father had taught her well, even if he never imagined she'd need those lessons. As James closed in, the gang was starting to feel the weight of their mistake, though they still didn't realize the storm heading their way. Night had fallen, and the air around the biker gang's hideout was thick with unease. Razor paced the room, sensing something wasn't right. The girl hadn't spoken a word, but her watchful demeanor put everyone on edge. "Keep an eye on her," he barked at one of his men, glancing out the window as if expecting trouble. Meanwhile, James moved silently through the forest surrounding the hideout. His years of training made every step deliberate, every movement calculated. He tracked their trail to this secluded cabin, and now he was surveying the area, counting guards and noting escape routes. His heart pounded, but his focus never wavered. He was close. Inside, the girl noticed the growing tension among the bikers. She knew her father would come. He always had a plan. Razor's men grew restless, their laughter fading into weary glances toward the door. The quiet night outside offered no comfort, only the faint sense of a predator lurking in the shadows. James slipped closer, undetected, ready to strike. The gang had no idea their sanctuary had already been breached, and the battle they weren't prepared for was just moments away. As James crept closer to the cabin, something caught his eye. A second set of tracks, leading away from the hideout. They were faint but distinct, the kind of detail only someone with his training would notice. He paused, realizing the bikers weren't alone. Someone else had been here recently, and they had left in a hurry. His gut told him this wasn't just a simple kidnapping anymore. Inside, Razor's phone buzzed. He answered in a low voice, stepping into the next room. The conversation was tense, with Razor firing back sharp replies. When he returned, his face was tight with anger. "Change of plans," he snapped. "We're moving her now," the gang protested, but Razor silenced them with a glare. Something had spooked him, something even the girl could sense. Unbeknownst to James, Razor wasn't just worried about him. The bikers had crossed someone else recently, someone just as dangerous. As James prepared for his move, he had no idea another storm was closing in, one that could either complicate his rescue or give him the upper hand. The stakes had just doubled, and time was running out. James waited for the perfect moment, his breath steady, his eyes locked on the cabin. He'd scouted every angle, identified the weakest points, and was ready to act. Inside, the bikers scrambled to pack up, Razor barking orders as tension thickened. The girl, still calm, watched as Razor's impatience grew, her father's lessons echoing in her mind. Stay quiet, observe, and trust him to find you. Just as James moved in, another group arrived, shadowy figures armed and far more organized than the bikers. Razor froze when he saw them, his bravado slipping. "You weren't supposed to come here," he growled, but it was too late. These weren't allies. They were here to collect a debt. And they weren't leaving without their payment, or the girl. Chaos erupted. Razor's gang turned on the newcomers, and in the confusion, James struck. Swift and precise, he disarmed guards and moved toward his daughter. The girl's eyes lit up when she saw him, but Razor grabbed her, using her as a shield. James didn't hesitate. A distraction, a flashbang he'd crafted from supplies in his car, disoriented everyone. In the chaos, he took Razor down with a calculated strike, shielding his daughter as the other group retreated, realizing they'd underestimated the situation. As James carried his daughter to safety, Razor muttered from the ground, "You think this ends here?" James didn't respond, but the unspoken tension lingered. The bikers were finished, but the shadowy group's involvement hinted at a deeper, more dangerous enemy. A story far from over. As the first rays of dawn broke over the forest, James and his daughter walked back to their car, a small hand gripping his tightly. She looked up at him, finally breaking her silence. "I knew you'd come," she whispered, her voice steady but filled with relief. James smiled, pulling her close, his heart full, but his mind already turning over the events of the night. The bikers were gone, but the shadowy group's involvement left a lingering unease. He didn't know who they were or what they wanted, but one thing was clear. They'd crossed paths with the wrong man. For now, though, all that mattered was his daughter's safety. Back home, James put away the tools of his past life, hoping they'd stay locked away for good. But as he looked at his daughter playing in the yard, he knew he'd never stop being prepared for her. He always would be.